For 10,000 years, the galaxy believed one simple fact. Humanity had never existed. Every school taught it. Every history book repeated it. Every government archive confirmed it. There was no human empire. No planet called Earth. No species known as humans. Anyone who questioned this was laughed at. The Galactic Council had made sure of that. On the distant mining world of Vex 9, life was quiet and simple. The planet sat near the edge of explored space. Most people came there for one reason: mining rare crystals buried deep beneath the surface. Among the workers was a young survey officer named Kale. Kale spent his days scanning underground tunnels and mapping new mining zones. His job was usually boring. Nothing exciting ever happened on Vex 9, at least, that was what everyone believed. One cold morning, Kale received a new assignment. A mining team had detected a strange metal object deep underground. The scanners could not identify it. The miners thought it was an old alien machine. Kale was sent to investigate. He climbed into a transport vehicle and traveled across the rocky wasteland. The sky above was gray and filled with dust. After several hours, he reached the excavation site. The miners looked nervous. Their leader pointed toward a deep pit. "We found something strange down there," he said. "It doesn't match any known material." Kale nodded and climbed down into the pit. The deeper he went, the colder the air became. Soon, he reached the bottom. At first, he saw only rock. Then his flashlight revealed something impossible. A giant metal wall. It was perfectly smooth. Not a single mark of damage covered its surface. Kale stared in disbelief. The structure looked ancient, yet it appeared brand new. He moved closer. Strange symbols covered the wall, symbols he had never seen before. His scanner failed to recognize them. That should have been impossible. The Council database contained information on millions of languages, yet this one was unknown. Kale felt a strange feeling growing inside him, curiosity. He brushed away centuries of dust from the center of the wall. 2 words appeared beneath the dirt. His eyes widened. The symbols suddenly translated on his scanner, not because the database recognized them, but because the machine somehow decoded them on its own. The words were simple. Planet Earth. Kale frowned. He had never heard those words before. Planet Earth. What did they mean? Before he could think further, something happened. The wall vibrated softly. A deep sound echoed through the ground. Kale jumped backward. Hidden light suddenly appeared across the metal surface. For the first time in thousands of years, the structure came alive. Far above, the miners felt the ground shake. Panic spread through the site. Machines began shutting down. Communication systems flickered. Then everything went silent. Deep inside the structure, ancient systems were waking up, systems that had been sleeping for ages. Kale watched as glowing lines spread across the giant wall. Dust fell from the ceiling. Somewhere beyond the metal barrier, machines were moving. The sound was low and distant, like a giant creature opening its eyes after a very long sleep. Then a bright blue light appeared in front of him. A holographic screen. Words flashed across it. "Access detected. Genetic scan in progress." Kale stepped back. "What is this place?" he whispered. The screen continued changing. Ancient programs rushed back to life. Files unlocked. Hidden networks activated. Signals burst outward into space, far beyond Vex 9, far beyond the mining colony, across forgotten corners of the galaxy. Old satellites suddenly awakened. Secret stations powered on. Dark facilities hidden inside asteroids came online, one by one. Thousands of systems received the same message. Contact has been re-established. Meanwhile, inside the Galactic Council capital, alarms suddenly erupted. Council officers rushed through command centers. Large screens filled with warning symbols. Confused leaders demanded answers. A senior intelligence officer stared at the data in horror. His face turned pale. "Impossible," he whispered. The council speaker stepped forward. "What is happening?" The officer hesitated. His hands were shaking. Then he spoke words that had not been heard in centuries. "We have detected activation signals from human-class systems." The room instantly became silent. Several council members froze. Others looked terrified. One elderly official nearly dropped his tablet. "No," he said softly. "That cannot be possible." But the evidence was clear. Ancient networks were waking up across the galaxy. Networks the Council believed had been destroyed long ago, back on Vex 9. Kale continued staring at the holographic screen. New messages appeared, archives unlocked, security restrictions removed. The system seemed to be waiting for something. Then the metal wall slowly split apart. A narrow doorway opened. Cold air flowed from the darkness beyond. Kale's heart raced. Every instinct told him to leave. But curiosity pushed him forward. He stepped through the doorway. Inside was a massive underground chamber. Rows of silent machines stretched into the darkness. Strange symbols covered the walls. Everything looked ancient, yet perfectly preserved. At the center of the chamber stood a single screen. As Kale approached, the screen suddenly flickered. Static filled the air. Then an image appeared. A face, a human face. Kale had never seen a being like it before. The man looked directly at him. Then he smiled and spoke words that would change the galaxy forever. "If you are seeing this message, humanity has returned."
The underground chamber became completely silent. Kyle could hear only his own breathing. The face on the screen looked calm, almost as if it had been waiting for this moment for thousands of years. For several seconds, neither of them moved. Then the man on the screen spoke again. "My name is Commander Elias Ward of Earth Defense Command. If this message has been activated, then our final plan has succeeded." Kyle frowned. Earth? The strange name appeared again. He had never seen it in any history record. Yet somehow it felt important. Very important. The human commander continued. "When this recording was created, humanity was facing extinction. The Galactic Council had decided that humans were too dangerous to exist." Kale's eyes widened. That made no sense. The Galactic Council protected the galaxy. Everyone knew that. Why would the Council destroy an entire species? The screen suddenly changed. Images appeared above the chamber floor. Ships, cities, worlds, millions of people. Kyle stared in shock. The images showed a civilization unlike anything he had ever seen. Massive human fleets crossed the stars. Beautiful cities covered entire planets. Scientific stations floated around distant suns. Humanity had once been powerful, incredibly powerful. Then the images changed. Warships appeared. Explosions filled the stars. Entire colonies burned. People ran through smoke and fire. The peaceful civilization vanished beneath endless war. "The Council feared humanity's growth," Commander Ward said. "They feared our independence. They feared our ability to unite different species under one banner. So they chose another path. They erased us." Kyle watched silently. Every lesson he had learned in school suddenly felt uncertain. The commander pointed toward the viewer. "If you are watching this, then the Council's lies have survived for thousands of years. But so have we." The chamber lights suddenly brightened. Machines hidden throughout the facility came alive. Rows of computer terminals activated at once. Thousands of screens lit up across the room. A low mechanical hum filled the air. The bunker was waking completely. Kale stepped backward. "What are you?" he whispered. The answer came from another voice. Not the commander. A different one. A female voice. Calm and clear. "I am Athena." Kale turned quickly. A blue holographic figure appeared beside the screen. She looked human, but slightly transparent. An artificial intelligence. A machine mind. Athena smiled politely. "Welcome, visitor. You are the first living being to enter this facility in 9,142 years." Kale felt a chill run down his spine. Almost 10,000 years. The bunker had been waiting that long. "For what?" Kale asked. Athena's eyes seemed to study him. "For humanity's return." Before Kale could respond, warning lights flashed across the chamber. Athena's expression changed instantly. "Alert," she said. "Galactic Council vessels detected entering orbit." Kale froze. "Council ships? How had they arrived so quickly?" Athena answered before he could ask. "The activation signal was detected across the galaxy. The Council has been monitoring for human activity for thousands of years. Above Vex 9, Space suddenly filled with massive warships. Dark vessels emerged from hyperspace one after another, their weapons powered up immediately. On the command bridge of the lead ship, Council officers watched incoming reports. A senior commander looked grim. "The signal originated here," he said. "Human technology has been confirmed." The bridge fell silent. Even after 10,000 years, the word human still created fear. Back inside the bunker, Athena projected a star map into the air. Hundreds of bright lights appeared across the galaxy. Kyle stared at it. "What is this?" Athena's voice became softer. "Our inheritance." The lights began spreading. Hundreds became thousands. Thousands became tens of thousands. Hidden locations filled the map. Secret worlds, buried stations, sleeping fleets, lost colonies, all hidden beyond the Council's sight. Kale could hardly believe what he was seeing. "These are human locations?" he asked. "Yes," Athena replied. "Not all survived, but many remain hidden." The AI touched one glowing point near the center of the map. The light suddenly turned green, then another, then another. Kale watched as more points changed color. Something was happening, something huge. Athena's sensors processed incoming signals. Then she smiled. For the first time, she looked hopeful. "They are answering." "Who?" Kyle asked. Athena looked directly at him. "The descendants of humanity." The chamber speakers suddenly filled with voices, thousands of voices, messages arriving from distant stars. Encrypted signals flooded the network. Ancient codes became active once more. A civilization believed dead was beginning to speak again. Then one signal forced every other transmission aside. The entire chamber became silent. Athena's eyes widened. She seemed genuinely surprised. "Impossible," she whispered. The central star map zoomed toward a distant region beyond known space. A massive red symbol appeared. Unlike anything else on the map, Kale stared at it. "What is it?" Athena looked at the symbol for several seconds before answering. "When humanity disappeared, one fleet never checked in. One fleet vanished beyond the edge of the galaxy." Kale felt his heartbeat quicken. "And?" Athena slowly raised her eyes. "They just responded to our signal." The red symbol expanded across the map. A new message appeared beneath it. "First Fleet online, returning home, ETA." 14 days, far beyond the galaxy's edge, something ancient had awakened, and it was finally coming back.
14 days, that was all the time left for the Galactic Council. It felt like a countdown to disaster. For Athena, it felt like hope. For Kale, it felt like the beginning of a mystery that kept growing larger every day. Inside the hidden human bunker beneath Vex 9, activity never stopped. Ancient machines worked day and night. Systems that had slept for nearly 10,000 years were coming back online. Every hour, new signals arrived from distant stars. Some came from forgotten stations hidden inside asteroids. Others came from deep space observatories drifting between galaxies. Humanity's old network was waking up piece by piece, and the Council was watching all of it. Inside the Council capital, fear spread through the highest levels of government. Emergency meetings filled every hall. Military commanders demanded action. Politicians demanded answers. But nobody had a solution. Because nobody knew how much of humanity had survived, one thing was clear: the humans had prepared for this day, far better than anyone had imagined. Council Speaker Varan stood before a giant holographic display. Thousands of red warning symbols covered the map of the galaxy. Every symbol marked a human signal. Every hour more appeared. A nervous officer approached him. "Sir, another hidden station has activated." Varan clenched his fists. "How many now?" The officer swallowed. "More than 8,000 confirmed locations." The room became silent. 8,000. That was not a surviving species. That was a civilization. Meanwhile, on Vex 9, Kale stood beside Athena as they studied the giant star map. The mysterious red symbol remained active. The symbol of the lost First Fleet. The fleet that had vanished beyond the galaxy's edge 10,000 years ago. Kale looked at Athena. "You still haven't told me why this fleet is so important." Athena remained quiet for a moment. Then she answered, "Because it was humanity's strongest fleet." Kale expected more, but Athena's expression became serious. The Council believed it was destroyed during the war. Humanity believed it was lost forever. But now it is returning. Kale stared at the glowing symbol. If it survived, where has it been all this time? Athena slowly zoomed the map outward. Further, further, past the known stars, past explored space, past every charted route. Finally, she stopped. A dark region appeared beyond the edge of the galaxy. "There," she said. Kale frowned. "There is nothing there." Athena smiled slightly. "Exactly." The eye opened an ancient file. A recording appeared. The image showed hundreds of enormous human warships moving through deep space. At their center was a vessel unlike anything Kale had ever seen. It was massive, larger than cities, larger than some moons. The ship looked less like a warship and more like a moving world. "What is that?" Kale whispered. Athena answered immediately. "The Horizon, the flagship of the First Fleet." The recording continued. The giant vessel disappeared into darkness. Then the video ended. Kale felt chills. Why would they leave the galaxy during a war? Athena's voice became softer. Because humanity knew it might lose. The First Fleet carried humanity's final backup plan. Kale looked at her. "A backup plan?" Athena nodded. "Scientists, engineers, children, explorers. The best of humanity was placed aboard those ships. If humanity fell, they would survive." Kale suddenly understood. The fleet had not been running away. It had been protecting humanity's future. Suddenly, warning alarms echoed through the bunker. Red lights flashed across the walls. Athena turned instantly. Her face changed. "Council fleet detected." A holographic image appeared above the room. Dozens of Council warships filled the sky above Vex 9. Weapons were charging. Attack formations were forming. Kale's heart sank. "They found us," Athena nodded. "Yes, above the planet." Council Commander Drek stood on the bridge of his flagship. He stared at the surface below. The hidden bunker had finally been located. For thousands of years, the Council had searched for surviving human technology. Now they had found it, and they intended to destroy it. "Prepare orbital strike weapons," Drex ordered. Officers immediately obeyed. Energy cannons powered up. Missile systems locked onto their targets. The bunker had no chance, or so they believed, back underground. Athena remained calm. She pressed several commands into the air. Deep beneath the facility, giant mechanisms activated. Kale felt the ground shake. "What are you doing?" he asked. Athena smiled. Following instructions left behind by humanity, the shaking became stronger. Dust fell from the ceiling. Far below the bunker, something enormous was moving. Then a new signal appeared on the star map. Athena's eyes widened. The First Fleet had sent another transmission. A single line appeared across every screen. "Do not engage, we are already here." Kale stared at the message. His blood ran cold. "What does that mean?" Athena looked equally confused. "The fleet is still 14 days away. That message should be impossible." Before either of them could speak again, every sensor in the bunker exploded with activity. Emergency alerts flooded the system. Council ships above Vex 9 suddenly reported massive gravitational disturbances. Space itself began to bend. Commander Drex grabbed his console. "What is happening?" Nobody answered. Because nobody understood what they were seeing. Above the planet, the stars themselves appeared to twist. A giant shadow emerged from empty space. Slowly, silently, something impossible was arriving, not from hyperspace, not from a jump gate, but directly from the darkness between the stars. As the shadow grew larger, Council officers stared in horror. The object blocked entire sections of the sky. It was bigger than any ship ever recorded, bigger than any station, bigger than anything the galaxy believed could exist. Then one terrified officer finally whispered the truth. "It's a fleet." And behind that first shadow, thousands more appeared. The stars above Vex 9 disappeared behind a wall of metal. Thousands of massive ships filled the darkness. They arrived without hyperspace gates, without warning, without any known technology. One moment the sky was empty. The next moment, an entire fleet stood above the planet. Every council officer watching the sensors thought the same thing. This should not be possible. On the bridge of the council flagship, Commander Drex stared at the giant vessels. His hands shook slightly. The largest ship was beyond anything he had ever seen. Its surface carried no battle scars, no visible weapons, no markings of fear, only a single symbol stretched across its enormous hull. An old symbol. A symbol the council had spent 10,000 years trying to erase humanity. Silence filled the bridge. Then every communication system on every council ship activated at the same time. A calm voice echoed through the fleet. "This is Admiral Noah Kane of the First Fleet. You are currently surrounding protected human property. Move your vessels away from Vex 9 immediately." Nobody on the council ships responded. Many were too shocked to speak. The First Fleet was supposed to be lost, destroyed, gone forever. Yet here it was, stronger than ever. Commander Drex finally found his voice. "This region belongs to the Galactic Council. You are operating inside Council territory." Several seconds passed. Then Admiral Kane answered, "No." The single word felt heavier than any threat. "No." Drex repeated. The Admiral's voice remained calm. "You erased our worlds. You erased our people from history. You erased our names from every archive. You do not get to claim what belongs to humanity." Across the Council fleet, fear began spreading, not because of the words, but because of how confidently they were spoken. The humans sounded like people who already knew they had won. Deep underground, Kale watched the conversation beside Athena. For the first time, he was seeing living humans, not recordings, not old files. Real humans, and they were nothing like the monsters described in secret council reports. They sounded controlled, disciplined, patient. Athena suddenly turned toward him. "There's something you need to see." Before Kale could respond, the chamber transformed. Thousands of hidden projectors activated. The room became a living history archive. Images appeared everywhere. Ancient cities, starships, alien ambassadors, human families. Kale slowly walked forward. "What is this?" Athena answered quietly, "The truth." The first image showed a meeting hall. Humans stood beside dozens of alien species. They were laughing together, sharing ideas, signing agreements. There was no war, no violence, only cooperation. Kale frowned. "This doesn't match council history." "It shouldn't," Athena replied. Council history was rewritten. The image changed. Now Kale saw a secret gathering. Council leaders sat around a large table. The room was dark, the atmosphere tense. Athena slowed the recording. "Watch carefully," one council official stood and spoke. His words were translated automatically. "Humanity's influence continues to grow. They are forming alliances faster than any species in recorded history. They are becoming impossible to control." Another leader nodded. "If this continues, the council itself may become irrelevant." Kale froze. These were not discussions about defense. They were discussions about power. The recording continued. Votes were cast. Agreements were signed. Military plans were approved. Humanity was not targeted because it was dangerous. Humanity was targeted because it was successful. Kale stared in disbelief. "They started the war?" Athena nodded. "Yes." The next images were worse, much worse. Human colonies burned. Civilian ships were attacked. Entire worlds vanished beneath orbital bombardments. Families fled through smoke and fire. Millions died. Then billions. Kale could barely watch. Everything he had believed was collapsing. The council had always presented itself as the guardian of peace, but the recording showed something very different. A government protecting its own power, no matter the cost. Athena touched another control. The images changed again. Now Kale saw humanity's final days. Scientists working endlessly, engineers building secret stations, explorers mapping hidden routes, entire fleets disappearing into deep space. They knew they were losing. Athena said, "So they prepared." Kale recognized one of the ships, the Horizon. The giant flagship of the First Fleet. Thousands of people boarded it. Not soldiers, families, teachers, children, doctors. Humanity had not been planning revenge. They had been planning survival. Suddenly, a new signal interrupted the archive. Athena's eyes widened. The transmission came directly from the First Fleet. Incoming galaxy-wide broadcast. Kale looked up. What does that mean? Athena smiled. It means the waiting is over. High above Vex 9. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of the horizon. Thousands of officers worked around him. One of them turned toward the Admiral. Broadcast network ready. Kane nodded. Send everything. Moments later, every screen across the galaxy activated. Schools, government offices, trading stations, private homes, everywhere. Billions of citizens suddenly saw the same thing. The hidden recordings, the secret meetings, the erased history, the truth. Planet after planet watched in shock. People who had trusted the Council all their lives suddenly saw evidence of the greatest lie in galactic history. Messages exploded across communication networks. Questions became arguments. Arguments became protests, and protests became riots. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Council was losing control. Back on the horizon, another officer approached Admiral Kane. His expression was serious. Sir, multiple systems are declaring support for humanity. Kane nodded slowly. It had begun. But before he could speak, a warning alarm suddenly echoed across the bridge. The room became silent. A new object had appeared on long-range scanners. Something hidden, something ancient, something even the Council did not know existed. The officer looked pale. Admiral ... Kane turned toward the display. What is it? The officer swallowed hard, then answered, a weapon. A very large weapon. And according to the data, it was built specifically to destroy humanity. The bridge of the horizon fell silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Every officer stared at the giant object displayed on the main screen. It was hidden far beyond the Council capital, buried inside a dead star system that did not appear on any public maps. The structure was enormous, larger than a moon. Its surface was covered with ancient armor plates. Energy readings poured from it like a storm. Even after 10,000 years, the machine was still active. Admiral Noah Kane narrowed his eyes. Identification. An officer quickly checked the incoming data. His face became pale. We found references inside old Council records. The project name was... Final silence. The room became uneasy. Even the name sounded dangerous. What does it do? Kane asked. The officer hesitated. Then he answered, it destroys stars. For several seconds, nobody reacted. The statement was too unbelievable. Destroy stars? Entire solar systems depended on their stars. Without them, every planet would freeze and die. Billions could disappear in a single attack. The officer continued. The weapon was designed during the human war. It was built as a last resort if humanity could not be defeated through conventional means. Kane looked at the screen. 10,000 years ago, the Council had prepared to wipe out entire systems just to erase one species. Humanity had never known how far the Council was willing to go. Now they did. Far away, inside the Council capital. Panic was spreading. The galaxy-wide broadcast had changed everything. Citizens everywhere had seen the truth. Protests filled major worlds. Several member species publicly demanded investigations. Others announced they were leaving the Council completely. The government that had ruled for 10,000 years was beginning to crack. Inside a secure chamber beneath the capital, the remaining Council leaders gathered around a circular table. Their faces showed exhaustion. Fear, anger. One official slammed his hand onto the table. We should have destroyed every human station when we had the chance. Another glared at him. And start a civil war 10,000 years ago? The argument quickly grew louder. Everyone blamed everyone else. But none of that changed reality. Humanity had returned. And now the galaxy knew the truth. At the end of the table sat Chancellor Merrick, the oldest surviving Council leader. Unlike the others, he remained calm. He slowly stood. The room became quiet. Merrick looked at each official before speaking. If the Council falls, we fall with it. Nobody argued. They all understood. Then Merrick activated a hidden control panel. A holographic image appeared above the table, the same weapon seen by the First Fleet. Final silence. Several officials stared in shock. You kept it operational? One asked. Merrick nodded. I kept it ready. The room became silent again. Then a slow smile appeared on his face. If humanity wants the galaxy back, they can inherit its ashes. Meanwhile, on Vex 9, Kale continued helping Athena analyze incoming information. The bunker had become one of humanity's most important command centers. Signals arrived every minute. Support messages came from across known space. Species that once feared humans were now offering assistance. Others were sharing secret information about Council activities. The galaxy was choosing sides. And more worlds were choosing humanity than anyone expected. Kale studied one report after another. Then something caught his attention. Athena, look at this. The eye immediately appeared beside him. The report came from an independent trading alliance. It showed unusual cargo movements over several centuries. Huge amounts of material had secretly been transported to the dead star system housing Final Silence. Athena analyzed the data, then her expression changed. They've been upgrading it. Kale looked up. What? The weapon isn't ancient anymore. They have been improving it for thousands of years. A cold feeling settled over the room. The weapon was not a forgotten relic. It was an active threat. A threat prepared for this exact moment. Suddenly, every screen in the bunker flashed red. An emergency transmission arrived from the horizon. Athena opened the message instantly. Admiral Kane appeared. His face was serious. We've confirmed enemy activity around Final Silence. Council fleets are gathering there. Kale immediately understood. They're going to use it. Kane nodded. Yes. The Admiral looked directly into the camera. If they activate that weapon, millions of worlds could be threatened. We cannot allow it to fire. Across human-controlled space, fleets began moving. Ancient ships left hidden bases. Defense forces launched from secret colonies. The descendants of humanity answered the call. For the first time in 10,000 years, human fleets moved openly through the galaxy. Not to conquer, not for revenge, but to stop a disaster. As preparations continued, another message arrived. This one from the Council. It was broadcast to every world. Every station, every ship. The face of Chancellor Merrick appeared. He looked calm, almost relaxed. Citizens across the galaxy watched in silence. Merrick smiled slightly before speaking. For 10,000 years, the Council preserved peace. Today, that peace is threatened by the return of humanity. He paused, then revealed the weapon behind him. Gasps spread across countless worlds. Merrick's smile widened. If humanity does not surrender within 72 hours, Final Silence will activate. The responsibility for what follows will belong to them. The transmission ended. Shock swept across the galaxy. Entire populations stared at their screens. No one had expected this. The Council was threatening everyone, not just humanity back aboard the horizon. Admiral Kane watched the broadcast. His expression hardened. The Council had finally shown its true face. An officer stepped forward. Orders, sir? Kane looked at the giant star map. Thousands of friendly fleets were already moving. The coming battle would decide the future of the galaxy. He took a slow breath, then gave the command. Prepare all forces. Set course for Final Silence. Around him, officers rushed into action. Engines roared to life. Fleet formations changed. The largest military operation in human history had begun. But deep inside the dead star system, hidden beneath layers of armor and energy shields, Final Silence was already charging. And according to the latest sensor reports, it needed only one more activation code, one final command, before it could fire. 72 hours, that was the deadline Chancellor Merrick had given the galaxy. Now only 18 hours remained. Across thousands of star systems, fear spread faster than any ship could travel. Citizens watched the news every minute. Families gathered around screens. Governments prepared emergency plans. No one knew what would happen if Final Silence fired, but everyone understood one thing. The galaxy might not survive it. Deep inside the dead star system, the massive weapon continued charging. Its giant energy rings glowed brighter every hour. Lightning-like streams of power moved across its surface. The machine looked less like a weapon and more like an artificial sun. A terrible sun built for destruction. Around it, hundreds of Council warships formed defensive lines. Their mission was simple: protect the weapon at any cost. Meanwhile, the largest fleet in human history raced through space. Thousands of ships traveled together: ancient warships, modern cruisers, defense carriers, exploration vessels converted into support ships. Even civilian volunteers joined the mission. For the first time in 10,000 years, humanity stood united. On the bridge of the horizon, Admiral Noah Kane studied the battlefield map. Red markers filled the display. Council fleets surrounded Final Silence from every direction. The weapon sat at the center like a giant fortress. An officer approached. "Latest report, Admiral." Kane nodded. "Let's hear it." "The Council has deployed everything." Kane wasn't surprised. If the Council lost the weapon, it lost its last chance to control the galaxy. Another officer spoke. "We've also received support from 23 independent species." A small smile appeared on Kane's face. 10,000 years ago, humanity had stood alone. This time was different. This time they had allies. Back on Vex 9, Kale watched the fleet movements through Athena's command systems. The scale was difficult to understand. Millions of lives were now connected to the same battle. One mistake could change the future forever. Athena appeared beside him. "The fleets will arrive in 3 hours." Kale looked at the tactical map. "Can we destroy the weapon?" Athena remained silent for a moment, then answered honestly. Maybe. That single word worried him more than any warning. 3 hours later, space around the dead star system exploded with activity. Human fleets emerged from hyperspace in every direction. Thousands of bright flashes filled the darkness. The battle had begun. Council commanders reacted immediately. Attack orders spread across their formations, weapons charged, missiles launched, energy beams crossed the void. Within seconds, the largest battle in galactic history was underway. From the bridge of the horizon, Kane watched countless ships exchange fire. Explosions lit the darkness like artificial stars. Entire fleets maneuvered between giant debris fields. The battle stretched across millions of kilometers, yet despite the chaos, Kane remained focused on one target: Final Silence. Nothing else mattered. If the weapon fired, victory would become meaningless. Suddenly, a warning appeared: enemy reinforcements. Hundreds of hidden Council ships emerged from behind nearby moons. They rushed directly toward the human flank. An officer looked alarmed. "Admiral, they're trying to trap us." Kane nodded calmly. "They're too late." He activated a communication channel. Phase 2. Across the battlefield, dozens of human ships changed course. At first, the movement seemed random. Then the Council realized the truth. Human vessels were not retreating. They were creating a corridor, a path leading directly toward Final Silence. The Council attempted to close the gap, but human ships moved faster. Every maneuver seemed planned long before the battle began. Athena's ancient tactical systems had predicted thousands of possible outcomes. Navo's predictions guided every fleet. The corridor widened. Human forces surged forward for the first time. Final Silence stood exposed inside the weapons command center. Council technicians panicked. Enemy ships were approaching too quickly. Defensive systems activated. Shield generators increased output. But another problem appeared, a much bigger problem. The weapon suddenly stopped charging. Confused engineers checked their systems. Nothing made sense. Power levels were falling, not rising. Emergency alarms echoed through the station. One technician finally discovered the cause. His face turned pale. "Someone is inside the system." The room froze. "What do you mean?" A commander shouted. The technician pointed toward the screen. A single name appeared across every console. Athena. 10,000 years ago, humanity had secretly inserted hidden code into Final Silence during its construction. Code designed for one purpose: to prevent the weapon from ever being used. The Council had never found it, and now Athena had activated it. Across the battlefield, the giant weapon began shutting down. Its glowing energy rings faded. Its shields weakened. Its power systems collapsed one by one. Cheers erupted across human communication channels. For a brief moment, victory seemed certain. Then a new alarm sounded aboard the horizon. Kane immediately turned toward the display. The officer monitoring long-range sensors looked terrified. Admiral ... What is it? The officer swallowed hard. Merrick isn't trying to fire the weapon anymore. Kane's eyes narrowed. Then what is he doing? The answer appeared on the screen. A hidden command had just been activated, not a firing sequence, a self-destruction sequence. Final Silence was preparing to explode. The blast would destroy the entire star system, every fleet, every ship, every ally, every one. The countdown appeared across all channels. 10 minutes remaining. On the bridge, silence returned. Because everyone understood the truth. The battle was not over. It had just become a race against time. The numbers glowed across every screen, every ship, every station, every command center. The countdown could not be ignored. Final Silence was no longer a weapon. It had become a giant bomb. If it exploded, the entire star system would vanish. Human fleets, council fleets, allied forces, everything would be destroyed. For a few seconds, the battlefield fell silent. Even enemies stopped firing. Because survival had suddenly become more important than victory, on the bridge of the horizon, Admiral Noah Kane stared at the countdown. 9:42 remaining. An officer looked at him nervously. Admiral, we need to retreat. Another officer shook his head. There isn't enough time. The calculations were simple. No fleet could escape the blast radius before detonation. The room grew quiet. Thousands of lives depended on Kane's next decision. Then Athena's voice appeared through the communication network. Calm as always. There may be another option. Every officer turned toward the nearest screen. Athena's holographic face appeared. We cannot stop the self-destruction sequence remotely, but we can stop it manually. Kane immediately understood. The control center, Athena nodded. The original command core still exists inside the station. If someone reaches it, the sequence can be canceled. An officer checked the data. His expression darkened. The core is buried deep inside Final Silence, protected by dozens of security layers, and surrounded by council troops. The room became silent again. The mission sounded impossible. Then Kale's voice came through the channel. I'll do it. Everyone turned toward the transmission. Kale stood inside a small transport ship aboard the horizon. His hands trembled slightly, but his voice remained steady. Athena looked at him. The chances of success are very low. Kale smiled weakly. They were low when I touched that door on Vex 9 too. For the first time, Athena smiled back. Minutes later, a small team launched toward Final Silence. The transport moved through debris, explosions, and abandoned battle zones. The giant station grew larger and larger until it filled the entire view outside the cockpit. It looked like a metal world, a world built for destruction. Inside the station, Chancellor Merrick watched the countdown. His empire was collapsing. The truth had spread across the galaxy. Entire systems had left the Council. Its fleets were losing. Its authority was gone, but Merrick refused to accept defeat. If I cannot control the future, he whispered, then nobody will. Suddenly, alarms echoed through the command center. Security officers rushed toward him. Human intruders detected. Merrick's eyes narrowed. They're too late. Back inside the station, Kale and his team moved through endless corridors. Old defense systems attacked them. Locked doors blocked their path. Council soldiers tried to stop them, but they kept moving. Every minute mattered. Every second mattered. The countdown continued. 5:11 remaining. Finally, they reached the central command core. A massive circular chamber stretched before them. At its center stood a glowing control pillar, the original heart of Final Silence. Kale rushed forward, then stopped. Someone was already there. Chancellor Merrick, the old leader, stood beside the control pillar, waiting. The two stared at each other across the room. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Merrick laughed softly. You have no idea what humanity has done. Kale frowned. What do you mean? Merrick pointed toward the stars visible through a giant observation window. For thousands of years, the Council kept order. Without us, the galaxy will fall into chaos. Kale shook his head. No. The galaxy fell into chaos because of lies. Merrick's expression hardened. And you think humans are better? Kale thought about Athena, the First Fleet, the hidden colonies, the people who had survived for 10,000 years. Then he answered, "I think people deserve the truth." For a second, Merrick simply stared at him. Then he reached toward the control pillar. Kale reacted instantly. Both raced forward. The chamber erupted into chaos. The countdown continued. 2:14 remaining. Merrick tried to activate a final security lock. Kale fought to stop him. The two struggled beside the glowing controls, neither willing to surrender. Then at the last moment, Kale reached the command interface. Athena's code activated immediately. The pillar flashed blue. The countdown froze. 0:47 remaining. Silence filled the chamber. The self-destruction sequence ended. Final silence was safe. For several seconds nobody moved. Then Merrick slowly lowered his head. He knew it was over, not just the battle, everything. The war, the lies, the council itself. Hours later, fleets across the galaxy received the same message: the war had ended. Council forces surrendered one system after another. Citizens celebrated in the streets. Ancient records were restored. Hidden truths became public. The galaxy finally learned what had happened 10,000 years ago. Weeks later, representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered for a historic meeting. Humans attended openly for the first time in ages. Former council species sat beside them, not as rulers, not as enemies, but as equals. Admiral Kane stood before the assembly. The room became quiet. Many expected a speech about victory. Others expected revenge. Instead, Kane said something simple. "We did not return to rule the galaxy. We returned to rejoin it." The room remained silent. Then one by one, representatives stood and applauded, not for humanity's power, but for its choice. Humanity had every reason to seek revenge. Instead, it chose something harder. A future. Years later, children across the galaxy would learn a different history. The true history. They would learn about Earth, about the human war, about the lies that almost erased an entire species, and about the people who refused to disappear. The Galactic Council had tried to erase humanity from history. Instead, humanity became the reason history was rewritten. And among the countless stars of the galaxy, one lesson would never be forgotten. The strongest civilizations are not the ones that conquer, they are the ones that endure. And after 10,000 years of silence, humanity endured the end.